My name is Clara Montgomery, and for most of my 34 years, I have lived my life as a quiet tributary, flowing predictably toward the great, tumultuous river of my family's expectations. I was born and raised under the perpetually damp, gray-green skies of Portland, Oregon, a city whose gentle melancholy has always seemed to mirror my own disposition. While my younger sister, Isabel, was a firework, all brilliant, chaotic sparks, I was the steady wick, the one who burned slowly and reliably, often unnoticed in the glare. I found my calling not in a boardroom or a courtroom, but in the quiet, sunlit rooms of a small community center in the Hawthorne district, where I work as an art therapist for at-risk youth. My days are scented with clay, acrylic paint, and the faint, hopeful aroma of brewing herbal tea. I help children translate their tangled, unspeakable emotions into color and form, finding a profound sense of purpose in the silent language of creation. I live in a modest, but lovingly restored craftsman bungalow in Laurelhurst, its dark wood trim and leaded glass windows a comforting embrace against the world. I own it outright, a testament to years of careful saving and a life lived well within my means. My sister, Izzy, chose a different path. She married Leo, her college sweetheart, at 22, and they quickly settled into a sprawling, modern house in the West Hills, a glass and steel monument to ambition with a panoramic view of a city they seemed to own. Their 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, are beautiful, bright, and enrolled in the prestigious Oakhaven Academy, where tuition costs more than my annual salary. Izzy has never held a job. Her life is a whirlwind of charity luncheons, yoga retreats, and managing a household that runs on the seemingly inexhaustible generosity of our parents. Our grandmother, Eleonora, was the one person who saw the river and the tributary as equal. She was a woman of the earth, with hands permanently stained with soil from her beloved garden and a wisdom as deep as the Oregon soil itself. Before she passed away, she established a considerable trust, the Hawthorne Legacy Fund, to be divided equally between Izzy and me upon our 35th birthdays. It was her way, I think, of ensuring both her granddaughters had the means to plant their own gardens, whatever form they might take. But I knew my parents. I had seen the dynamic play out since childhood. I remember one Christmas when I was 8 and Izzy was 6. I had longed for a gleaming red bicycle, and I received one lovingly repainted by my father, a hand-me-down from a neighbor. Izzy, who had mentioned a blue bike in passing, was gifted a brand new one, complete with a basket and shimmering tassels. "Clara is so sensible," my mother had explained, ruffling my hair. "She understands." And I did. I understood that my sensibility was a convenient excuse for their favoritism. My achievements, a scholarship to Reed College, graduating summa cum laude, the quiet, profound success of my work, were met with polite, distracted nods. Izzy's life, however, was a constant, riveting drama they co-produced. Every overdrawn account, every fender bender in her luxury SUV, every marital spat was a 5-act play requiring their full attention, counsel, and financial intervention. I was the reliable, low-maintenance daughter. She was the project, the investment, the one who always needed them. The quiet, steady rhythm of my life was a source of peace, but it also made me invisible to them. They saw my small, contained world and assumed it was the full measure of my existence. They never asked about the children I worked with, about the breakthroughs that felt like miracles, or about the deep, persistent ache in my heart for a family of my own. They never asked, so they never knew. They didn't know that for the past 18 months, the quietest, most significant part of my life was unfolding, a secret garden I tended with hope and trepidation. They didn't know about Lily. The turning point came 3 months ago, on a drizzly Sunday evening in May. It was my father's birthday, and we were gathered at my parents' house. Their home, unlike mine, was an exercise in minimalist precision, all white walls, chrome fixtures, and abstract art that felt more like an investment than an expression of soul. The air was cool and carried the scent of expensive scented candles, a stark contrast to the warm, earthy smell of my own home. Izzy was holding court, recounting a dramatic story about a canceled trip to Tuscany because of a cash flow issue. Leo sat beside her, looking harried, stirring his wine and avoiding eye contact. My parents listened with rapt, sympathetic expressions, nodding and murmuring reassurances. I sat quietly, nursing a glass of water, feeling like a spectator watching a familiar play from a distant seat. Later, while helping my mother clear the dessert plates, I stepped into the hallway to retrieve my coat. Their voices drifted from the living room, low and conspiratorial. "It's Leo's startup again," my father sighed. "He poured everything into that new tech venture, and it's flatlining. They're behind on the mortgage for the third time this year. And the Oakhaven tuition is due," my mother added, her voice laced with anxiety. Izzy is beside herself. She says the children would be devastated to have to change schools. A pause. Then, the words that felt like a slow, deliberate turning of a key in a lock I didn't know was there. "Eleonora's fund. Clara's half could solve all of this. It's just sitting there. She's single, she has her little job, she doesn't have a family to support. She wouldn't even miss it. It's for the best," my father agreed, his voice firm with a resolution that excluded me entirely. "We'll talk to the lawyers at Sterling and Finch. We're the trustees, after all. We can redirect it. Clara will understand." I stood frozen in the dim hallway, the antique grandfather clock in the corner ticking off seconds that felt like hours. It wasn't the money. I had built a life for myself that didn't depend on it. It was the casual, unthinking erasure of me, of my life, my needs, my future. "She doesn't have a family to support." The words echoed in the empty spaces of my heart, the places I had been carefully, quietly preparing to fill. They didn't know that the very next day, I had my final preliminary meeting with the Oregon Department of Human Services. They didn't know I was on the cusp of giving a home to a beautiful, fragile 6-year-old girl named Lily, who had lost her own family in a cruel twist of fate on the I-5. They didn't know because their gaze was always fixed on the dazzling, demanding firework, never on the steady, quiet flame. A strange calm settled over me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a profound, clarifying sadness. The kind of sadness that burns away illusions and leaves behind the hard, unvarnished truth. They would never see me. Not the real me. And if I wanted to protect the future I was building, I would have to do it myself. The next morning, I bypassed Sterling and Finch, my parents' corporate law firm, and took the streetcar downtown to a historic brick building overlooking the Willamette River. The offices of Thorne and Associates were old-fashioned and comforting, filled with the scent of old paper, leather, and rain-soaked wool. Mr. Eris Thorne had been my grandmother's lawyer and had become a trusted confidant over the years. He was a tall, kind man with eyes that held the wisdom of 1,000 confidential stories. "Clara," he greeted me warmly, ushering me into his office, which was lined with books from floor to ceiling. "What brings you here on such a dreary Monday?" I recounted the conversation I had overheard, my voice steady, stripped of emotion. He listened without interruption, his hands steepled under his chin. When I finished, he didn't offer platitudes or outrage. Instead, a slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "Your grandmother," he said, rising and walking to a large, mahogany filing cabinet, was one of the shrewdest women I have ever known. She loved both her granddaughters fiercely, but she was not blind. She saw the patterns, even then. He returned with a heavy, leather-bound portfolio and opened it on his desk. He pointed to a paragraph on a page yellowed with age, typed on an old manual typewriter. "She called it the Eleonora Clause," he explained. "It states that the Hawthorne Legacy Fund is to be managed by the trustees, your parents, for the benefit of the named beneficiaries. However," he paused, tapping the page for emphasis, "should the trustees attempt to alter the equal, 50-50 distribution of the principal without the written, notarized consent of both beneficiaries, the trust is to be dissolved immediately, and the full balance of each beneficiary's share is to be disbursed directly to them, no questions asked." I stared at the page, at my grandmother's elegant, looping signature at the bottom. It was a shield, forged years ago by a love that was clear-sighted and protective. A love that saw me. "She knew," I whispered, a wave of gratitude so immense it almost brought me to tears. "She believed in fairness, Clara," Mr. Thorne said gently. And she believed in you. That afternoon, a plan formed, not of revenge, but of preservation. Following Mr. Thorne's guidance, I preemptively activated the clause by refusing consent to any future changes. Then, I set up a new, secure trust with a local, community-focused bank, naming myself as the sole beneficiary for now. My half of the fund, just over $1 million, was transferred into it. It wasn't for me, not really. It was for Lily's future, her education, her security, her dreams. And it was the seed money for a project that had been a quiet dream of my own, the Sparrow House Art Collective, a dedicated, permanent space for my work, a sanctuary where children like Lily could find their voice through art, named for the small, resilient birds my grandmother had loved to watch in her garden. Now, 3 months later, sitting in Mr. Thorne's office with Lily's final adoption papers spread before me, the text message from my mother arrived. It felt less like a blow and more like a final, predictable move in a game I was no longer playing. The message arrived while I was finalizing adoption papers at my lawyer's office. I began, my voice steady and clear. Mr. Thorne listened, a flicker of something, perhaps pride, in his kind eyes. Clara, we decided to redirect your trust fund to Isabel. She has 3 kids and needs it more than you. The transfer will be complete by Friday, my mother's text read. It was followed, almost instantly, by my father's. It's for the best. You understand. A slow smile touched my lips, genuine and unforced. I looked at the photo of Lily on my phone, her shy grin and big, curious eyes. Everything okay, Clara? Mr. Thorne asked, his gaze soft. I showed him the screen. His eyebrows rose for a fraction of a second before he saw the serenity on my face. You don't seem surprised, he observed. I'm not, I replied, my heart full not with anger, but with a quiet, unshakable peace. I picked up the pen to sign the final document that would make me a mother. I made the necessary arrangements 3 months ago. I typed a simple, 7-word reply to my parents. Thank you for letting me know. Then I silenced my phone, turning all my attention to the beautiful, precious future waiting for me in the signature line on the page. The drive home from Mr. Thorne's office was a study in contrasts. Outside, the Portland sky wept a soft, persistent drizzle, the gray light broken by the neon signs of cafes and bookstores. Inside my car, a quiet, luminous joy was dawning. My phone, which I'd left on the passenger seat, buzzed and lit up relentlessly. Voicemails from my mother, her tone shifting from patronizing to confused. A string of texts from Izzy, each more frantic than the last. Clara, Mom told me the good news. It's such a relief, you have no idea. Leo and I are so grateful. Why aren't you answering? Mom said you'd understand. Clara, this isn't funny. Pick up the phone. You're being incredibly selfish right now. Selfish. The word bounced off me, harmless. For years, I had molded myself to their definition of selflessness, which was to have no needs of my own. Today, I had chosen my own needs, my own future, my own family. And it felt like the most honest thing I had ever done. I ignored the digital storm and focused on the physical world. The scent of wet asphalt. The sight of my little bungalow, its porch light a welcoming beacon in the gloom. Inside, I walked through the quiet rooms, my heart swelling. The house was ready. More than ready, it was waiting. In the small second bedroom, the one that used to be my cluttered art studio, a whole new world had taken shape. I had painted a mural on one wall, a gentle forest scene with birch trees and friendly woodland creatures, inspired by a drawing Lily had made during one of our visits. A small, white bed was dressed in a quilt with a pattern of stars, and above it, a projector cast a faint, swirling galaxy on the ceiling. On the bookshelf I'd built myself, titles I cherished from my own childhood, Harold and the Purple Crayon, Where the Wild Things Are, The Velveteen Rabbit, sat alongside new books I'd chosen just for her. On the pillow lay a small, well-loved stuffed fawn with one slightly crooked ear, which Lily had clutched in every one of our meetings. It was a room built not from a trust fund, but from love, anticipation, and the quiet, steady work of my own 2 hands. Tomorrow, this room would have its heart. Tomorrow, Lily was coming home. My parents' attempt to wield their financial power to script my life according to their narrative had failed. They thought the trust fund was a leash. They didn't realize I had already woven my own safety net, one made of stronger, more resilient fibers, self-respect, hard work, and a love they couldn't comprehend because they had never bothered to look for it. Let them believe, for a few more hours, that they had one. The quiet ones, the observers, often see the whole board. And they know, better than anyone, when it's time to make their move. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, our rare gift in a Portland autumn. The sun streamed through my kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air as I carefully packed a small lunch for Lily, a sandwich cut into the shape of a star, a handful of raspberries, and a thermos of apple juice. I was just placing it into a small, brightly colored backpack when the doorbell chimed, sharp and insistent. My stomach fluttered with a nervous energy that was not entirely joyful. I knew who it was. Through the leaded glass of my front door, I could see the silhouettes of my parents, their posture rigid with purpose. I took a deep breath, smoothing down my simple cotton dress, and opened the door. My mother, impeccably dressed in a cashmere twin set and tailored slacks, and my father, in a pressed polo shirt that screamed weekend golf, stood on my porch. Their polished appearance did little to conceal the agitation in their eyes. "Clara, we need to talk," my mother began, her voice tight, already stepping forward as if she had every right to enter. I held my ground, keeping my hand on the doorknob, my body a gentle but firm barrier. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. For the first time, I was not automatically making way for them. Their eyes scanned past me, into the entryway, and I saw their gazes lock onto the small, colorful backpack and the little pink suitcase sitting by the door. "Are you going somewhere?" my father asked, a note of genuine confusion in his voice. They had come expecting to manage my disappointment, not to walk into a scene they couldn't immediately decipher. "Yes, as a matter of fact, I am," I said, my voice calm and even. I glanced at the clock on the wall. "I have a very important appointment at 10 o'clock. I need to leave in about 20 minutes. "An appointment?" My mother's tone shifted into a familiar, manipulative key. "Clara, surely it can wait. This is about family. Your sister is at her wit's end." The Oakhaven tuition was due yesterday, and Leo's deal fell through completely. Again, I added, the word slipping out before I could stop it. It was quiet, but it landed in the space between us with the weight of a stone. "What is that supposed to mean?" my father demanded, his face beginning to flush. "It means I'm aware of the situation," I said, my gaze steady. "But as I said, I have to leave. We can discuss this another time." I reached for my purse on the entryway table, but my mother's hand shot out and gripped my arm. Her touch was surprisingly strong. "You're hiding something," she said, her eyes narrowing as they flicked back to the luggage. "Those bags, they're for a child. What are you up to, Clara?" As if on cue, my phone rang from my purse. The caller ID read Thorne and Associates. It was a prearranged confirmation call. A lifeline. "I need to take this," I said, gently but firmly removing her hand from my arm. "It's my lawyer." "Lawyer," my father repeated, his voice rising. "Why on earth are you talking to lawyers? We handled everything with Sterling and Finch." I answered the call, my finger deliberately pressing the speakerphone button. "Hi, Eris. Just confirming everything is on track." Mr. Thorne's warm, steady voice filled the sudden silence on the porch. "Good morning, Clara." "Yes, everything is set. The judge signed the final decree first thing this morning. The social worker is here with me. Lily is very, very excited to meet her new mom." New mom. The words hung in the crisp autumn air. The silence that followed was absolute. I watched my parents' faces, a slow-motion cascade of emotions, shock, disbelief, confusion, and then something else, something that looked almost like fear. The fear of a world they no longer controlled, a daughter they no longer understood. "Adoption?" my mother whispered, the word a puff of air. You're adopting a child? Without telling us? Without consulting us?" "I'm 34 years old, Mom," I said, my voice soft but unyielding. "I don't need your consultation. Or your permission." I picked up Lily's small backpack and slung it over my shoulder. Now, if you'll excuse me, my daughter is waiting for me. Daughter. My father's voice cracked. But the trust fund. We promised Izzy. We told her it was taken care of. That sounds like a problem you created, I replied, stepping out onto the porch and pulling the door closed behind me. I turned the key in the lock. The click was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. You made your decision about how to use my inheritance. And I've made my decision about my family. You can't afford this, my mother blurted out, her composure finally cracking. Not without that money. You work in a community center. Stop this foolishness right now, Clara. I turned to face them fully, the morning sun on my back. For a moment, I let the years of quiet hurt surface, not as anger, but as a clear, cold light of truth. You know, the most interesting thing in all of this is what you don't know, I began. In all these years, you never once asked me about my life. Not really. You never asked about my savings, my investments, or my plans for the future. You saw my quiet life and assumed it was a small one. You thought that trust fund was the only significant asset to my name, didn't you? They exchanged a look of sudden uncertainty. My father cleared his throat. Well, an art therapist's salary. My salary, I interrupted gently, plus the portfolio I've been building since I was 22, plus the not insignificant inheritance Grandma Eleonora left me directly in her will, the part that was entirely separate from the trust, have left me more than comfortable. I allowed a small, sad smile. Oh, you didn't know about that part of her will? I suppose you were too busy helping Izzy find a way to spend her portion within 6 months of receiving it. But Izzy needs, my mother stammered. Izzy wants, I corrected her, the distinction sharp and clear. There is a profound difference. And now I truly have to go. My daughter is waiting. I walked down the porch steps and along the flagstone path to my car. I didn't look back, but I could feel their stunned silence behind me. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed again. A text from Izzy. I switched it to silent and placed it face down. The road ahead was clear, and for the first time in my life, I was driving toward a destination entirely of my own choosing. The Bridgeview Family Center was a cheerful, welcoming place, full of colorful murals and the happy noise of children. Lily was waiting for me in a sunny playroom, sitting at a small table and carefully drawing a picture with a purple crayon. She was small for her age, with a cloud of dark, curly hair and enormous, solemn brown eyes that had seen too much of the world's harshness. The moment she saw me, however, those solemn eyes lit up, and a radiant smile transformed her face. In that smile, I saw the culmination of every hope, every prayer, every quiet act of preparation. It made every dismissal, every casual cruelty, every lonely moment of the past fade into insignificance. Ready to go home, sweet pea? I asked, kneeling down so we were at eye level. She nodded, her curls bouncing, and threw her arms around my neck in a fierce, trusting hug that melted the last of my resolve. As I held her, she pulled back slightly, her expression turning hesitant. Will they like me? She asked in a small voice. Who, honey? Your other family. Your mom and dad and sister. Will they like me? I gathered her close, my heart aching with a love so fierce it felt like a physical force. You and I whispered into her hair, we are a family now. Our own special kind. We're going to build it with love and stories and painting on rainy days. And yes, I hope they will love you when they get to know the amazing person you are. But for now, it's just you and me. And that is absolutely perfect. On the drive home, as Lily chattered excitedly about the mural in her new room, a text message vibrated against the console. It was from Mr. Thorne. Your parents just contacted Sterling and Finch to initiate the transfer. The bank has, of course, refused. The Eleonora clause has been officially triggered and documented. Shall I proceed as planned? I glanced in the rearview mirror at Lily, who was hugging her stuffed fawn and gazing with wide-eyed wonder at the passing tapestry of her new neighborhood. A profound sense of peace, deep and grounding, settled in my soul. My grandmother's legacy wasn't just the money, it was the wisdom to protect her own. Yes, I typed back. It's time they learned what Grandma Eleonora truly valued. The next day, the storm broke. My voicemail was a repository of my father's apoplectic rage. Clara, what is the meaning of this? The bank says the funds are gone. What in God's name have you done? My mother's messages were a chaotic blend of tearful pleading and veiled threats. Izzy's texts devolved into pure, unrestrained hysteria. You've destroyed my family. My children will have to go to public school. How could you be so monstrously selfish? I listened to it all from the sunny nook of my kitchen, a mug of warm tea in my hands, while I watched my daughter meticulously build a tower of blueberry pancakes. She looked up, her face a sticky, happy mess of syrup and joy, and caught the pensive look on my face. "Are you sad, Mama?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I reached out and wiped a smudge of syrup from her chin. "No, sweet pea," I smiled, my heart overflowing. "Not at all. I was just thinking about how absolutely perfect this morning is." The doorbell rang, followed by a series of sharp, angry raps. I glanced out the window to see my father's Lexus in the driveway, with Izzy's white Volvo parked haphazardly behind it. "Lilybug," I said calmly. "Remember our game for when things get too loud?" She nodded seriously and retrieved a pair of bright green, noise-canceling headphones from her little backpack. "Good girl. Why don't you take your phone and your book up to the reading nook in your room? I'll be up in a little while and we can finish the chapter." After settling her in her cozy corner, I took a deep, fortifying breath and opened the front door. The fury that greeted me was a tangible force. Izzy, her face blotchy and her eyes flashing, pushed past me into the house. "How dare you?" she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. "How dare you steal my children's future?" "That's an interesting way to put it," I replied, my voice a quiet counterpoint to her storm, "since you and Mom and Dad were planning to steal my share of Grandma's legacy." "That was different," my mother cried, rushing in behind Izzy. "We were doing it for the family. We were trying to help." "Help whom exactly?" I asked, my gaze sweeping from my mother's anxious face to Izzy's designer handbag and freshly highlighted hair. "Were you helping Leo and Izzy's children? Or were you helping to maintain a lifestyle they clearly can't afford on their own?" When I asked, my voice still soft, "Was the last time any of you asked me what I was building, what I dreamed of?" "You never needed help," my father boomed, stepping into the doorway, his face a mask of indignation. "You were always the stable one." "Stable," I repeated, the word tasting like ashes. "You mean I was the one you could afford to ignore?" The quiet, reliable backdrop for Izzy's endless drama. "Well, I have some news for you. Grandma Eleonora saw this coming. She knew you. She saw how you operated." I walked to the mantelpiece and picked up a thick, cream-colored envelope Mr. Thorne had given me. It contained a letter from my grandmother, to be opened under these exact circumstances. "Would you like to hear what she really thought about your definition of family?" My mother sank onto my comfortable, floral-patterned sofa, her composure finally crumbling. "What are you talking about?" "Your grandmother adored Izzy. She loved you both," I corrected gently. "But she saw how you fostered dependence in one daughter and punished the independence of the other. That's why she put the Eleonora clause in her will. She wasn't trying to punish Izzy. She was trying to protect me. From this. From you." "But the money, Clara. Where is it?" Izzy demanded, her voice shrill. "You have to give it back." At that moment, a small voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. "Mama? I can't reach my water." Lily stood on the landing, her little green headphones around her neck, clutching her stuffed fawn. The room fell into a sudden, profound silence. Every eye turned to the small girl, then back to me. My father stared, his mouth slightly agape. My mother looked at Lily, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Mama," she whispered, the word barely audible. "Yes," I said, my voice filled with a love that felt strong enough to hold up the roof. I went to the stairs and scooped Lily into my arms, pressing a kiss to her curly hair. "Everyone, this is Lily. My daughter. You spent the money on her?" Izzy sputtered, pointing a trembling finger. "No," I said, smiling down at the precious child in my arms. "I invested my inheritance in something much bigger." I looked back at my stunned family. The Sparrow House Art Collective is having its grand opening next month. It's a non-profit center right here in our community. A safe, beautiful place where children who have been through trauma, children like Lily, can find healing, support, legal aid, and a chance to build a new future. Grandma's trust wasn't just money. It was seed capital. It was an opportunity to continue her true legacy, protecting the small, the vulnerable, the ones who need it most. My father collapsed into an armchair as if his legs could no longer support him. All this time, he murmured, staring into space. All this time, I was building a life of purpose. I finished for him. While you were all frantically trying to patch the leaks in a lifestyle built on sand, I was laying a foundation. For myself, for Lily, and for hundreds of other children who need someone in their corner. But my kids, Izzy cried, her anger giving way to a raw, desperate panic. Their school. Their future. Perhaps it's time their future included attending the excellent public schools in this city, I suggested, my tone gentle but firm. Like I did. Perhaps it's time they learned that the value of a thing is not in its price tag, but in the effort it takes to earn it. Lily tugged on my sleeve. Pancakes now, Mama? Of course, sweet pea. I turned back to my family, their faces a mixture of defeat, confusion, and a dawning, painful understanding. You are welcome in our lives, I said, my voice clear and steady. You are welcome to be grandparents to this wonderful little girl. You are welcome to be part of something real and meaningful. But it will be on new terms. On terms of respect and honesty. The favoritism, the manipulation, the taking me for granted, that is over. That part of our family is closed for business. My mother looked at Lily, truly looked at her, and then at me. It was as if she was seeing us, the reality of us, for the very first time. She has your eyes, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. That same quiet strength. She has Grandma Eleanora's spirit, I corrected. And like her, I will not allow the people I love to be mistreated. As they filed out of my little house, not with anger, but with a heavy, thoughtful silence, I carried Lily back to the kitchen. Are they mad? She asked, picking up her fork. They're learning, honey, I replied, pouring a little more maple syrup on her pancake tower. Sometimes people have to lose something they thought they were entitled to, just to understand the value of what was being offered all along. That evening, as Lily slept soundly in her starlit room, a final text came through from my mother. It was different from all the others. Your grandmother would be so very proud of you, Clara. The Sparrow House, maybe your father and I could visit when it opens. I smiled, a real, hopeful smile. The first stone in a new foundation. Lily would love that, I typed back. She adores having stories read to her. If you're ever interested in volunteering for story time. I set the phone down, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The most satisfying victory isn't about evening a score. It's about building a life so full and beautiful that the old hurts no longer have room to reside. Lily and I had our family, a small, perfect circle of two. And maybe, just maybe, with time and patience and carefully tended boundaries, that circle could learn to grow. But this time, it would grow from a place of love, not obligation. It would grow on our terms. In our own time. In our own garden.